Welcome to Rollbar Academy. In this video of the Solutions series, we're going to look at the production code quality use case. For many of our customers, this is the primary Rollbar use case. This is definitely one of the first solutions or use cases that we identified. So just a quick review of the agenda here. We'll start just by defining the problem, then we'll look at how Rollbar helps us to solve that problem. Then we'll do a brief feature review, and then we will close out with the demo. All right, so what is the problem within the production space? So anyone that has to maintain code, I'm sure is all too familiar with some of these problems. It's very difficult to keep an accurate monitor of your production code and make sure that all of the errors that surface are appropriately addressed. So all of those errors that bubble up through your code, depending on how you're collecting them, if it's just something like a logging tool, there's no intelligence behind that, and so it involves a lot of human intervention and discernment to determine what should actually be fixed first, what is causing the most impact on our customers, and what can we actually fix in a short amount of time. So all of that time lost allows these errors to continue causing problems for your customers, for your end users. So errors, it's one of the quickest ways to get folks to turn away from your application, and that leads to churn, can lead to loss of revenue. So we definitely want to do everything we can to keep those errors out of your production code. That is where they are the most critical, and that's why we monitor that space more heavily. So hopefully we can find ways to improve the quality of that code, to make the production code experience a more stable one, give the end users the experience that they're looking for without these errors constantly bothering them as they attempt to use your software. All right, so how does Rollbar help with that problem? So Rollbar provides real-time error reporting, processing, and root cause analysis thanks to the combination of the SDK and the grouping engine that analyzes those Rollbar occurrences. So for teams that are not using it, they're going to depend heavily on the other observability tools they have. The only one that can really illuminate the same space would be a logging tool. But a lot of the time, the first line of awareness is also going to be the support tickets. The end users themselves are not happy with your code, and they're writing in to let you know about that. So if you don't have Rollbar, then that may be how you discover those problems. And then that requires some handover. It may have to be a transfer of knowledge from the support agent that fielded the ticket. They may have to track down who they think is the appropriate developer for that. They're probably missing a lot of context. There can be things that are lost in translation there. So all that time spent just on the most basic problems of trying to figure out who to assign, without even factoring in things like triaging and investigation. So once the problem is identified and it's handed to the right person, they have to use whatever tools they do have at their disposal to help understand the problem, so that they can hastily make a fix, roll that out to the production code, and try to stop the leaking, so to speak, on that particular error and the problems that it's causing. So with Rollbar, you're not going to face the problems of awareness. With the Rollbar notification system and the filtering provided, you can more intelligently route alerts to the correct teams, or maybe even to the correct users. So the real-time alerting and processing allows you to more quickly understand these things. The notifications themselves can help alert the appropriate maintainers faster, and then you can take advantage of all of the intelligence that Rollbar provides to more quickly and effectively debug that code issue. So the end of the workflow would be similar to what happens without Rollbar. We are applying those fixes to production, but hopefully we're doing this much faster. In reality, we usually are, helping to head off those support tickets that may be flowing in and mitigate the churn that might be otherwise experienced. So the Rollbar experience is going to greatly improve the quality of that code, which ultimately leads to a better user experience, reduced churn, improved revenue, however you'd like to think about that. All right, so how are we actually doing this? It's one thing to make these claims, it's another to back that up with product features and demonstrations. So these are the 5 features that to me are most critical to this use case. Based on the usage numbers, based on how our customers are using Rollbar, production code quality is the most important use case, and there are a number of other features that we could review, those that do contribute to this, but to me these are the ones that are most critical to this particular solution. So we'll start by reviewing automation grade grouping, then we'll look at people tracking, the telemetry data that can be provided by certain SDKs, the source control integration, and then we'll close out by looking at the notifications. And after that, we'll go over into a demo and we'll look at all of these features and how they work. All right, so automation grade grouping. This one is first, and I would say it's foremost. This is a relatively new development for Rollbar. The grouping engine that we do have, it is now powered by these machine learning generated grouping rules. So since we have access to such a large amount of error data, we're able to train these models on specific languages. Each language will generally have its own set of rules. And so over time, these rules are refined, they're improved, and our coverage continues to expand upon the error sets that we receive. And so through this, we're able to reduce undergrouping. We're more effective at pinpointing a specific root cause without any of the noise that may go around that. So another visualization here to help understand why this is important. There's 3 different levels of grouping that you can think of presented here. No grouping, this would be akin to a logging service. This is where every event has its own entry. It's not being grouped at all. Maybe there's some aggregation you can do with your log query language to just start to crunch these problems. But even with that, you could say that's similar to hard-coded algorithms, where it's very likely that certain attributions are made where problems are grouped together when they do have different root causes. So this would be Rollbar before the automation grade grouping. We spend a lot of engineer time maintaining these, but ultimately they are not as advanced as what we can deliver from the machine learning version of that same engine. So Rollbar is a leader in the grouping space, and this automation grade grouping engine is what really powers the intelligence platform. That's what gives a better result to the Rollbar end users, which then translates into better code quality and a better experience for your end users. So grouping is important, not only because it improves the Rollbar UX, but as grouping gets more intelligent and more accurate, that unlocks different workflows and allows you to take advantage of them. So depending on how confident you are in your Rollbar grouping, when I first started, it was still hard-coded, and so customers may have been apprehensive about setting up alerting. If their particular grouping experience wasn't so great, then that may be something they hesitated on. But now with automation grade grouping, pretty much all customers are taking advantage of the alerting feature, and we're starting to see more automation as well. Things like our Launch Darkly integration that allow you to automatically toggle feature flags based on the result of a Rollbar notification. That is something that depends heavily on grouping accuracy, because if we fired false positives on that notification trigger, then that would disable the feature flag, that would prevent accurate testing, and it may degrade the user experience for production as well. So we depend on accurate signal for a lot of things here at Rollbar, and we're very confident in the signal that we do provide from that grouping engine. And ultimately, one day we'd like to reach this point. This is where, to me, feature flagging is just the tip of that iceberg where the code will automatically present the feature that it should serve up based on the state of that feature flag. All right, so one last slide on the grouping engine, and then we'll move on. So just another glimpse into how this may help power those automated workflows. I believe I've used this slide on another one of my videos, but here you can see that, using the extra grouping that we have, there may be information in here that tells us this is a new error specific to a canary deployment. So that may trigger an auto rollback. This, I think, the second one here, or both 2 and 3, are pretty good for the production code quality use case. You roll out a new feature, and maybe for some reason it's not scalable with enterprise customers. Maybe the amount of data that they send is causing problems. So this could trigger a separate workflow. You could notify someone via PagerDuty or one of those escalation tools. That person then knows more about the problem at hand, knows where to go to investigate and where to begin spending their time. And then the third one, you may get information about an error that is impacting just your free tier users. Maybe there's just a small subset of folks that have opted in to some weird technical beta, and they may be the only people experiencing problems. So that's not really a 5-alarm crisis. You can create a ticket for that. You do want to track the problem and ensure that it is resolved, but it may not be worth waking someone up in the middle of the night for that. So all of this made possible by the grouping engine, by the high level of signal provided here, that allows us to put more faith into the automated workflows that we can create. All right, so on to the next feature then. So people tracking, this is another useful feature. This is one that's basically a way of collecting supplemental data about the users in your system that are experiencing problems. This gives the folks in a support role, they can look at the specific user info so they can get a better user story for a particular entity. Or this may just help those investigating an item. You can see how many people have been affected by that to see if it's a very widespread issue, if it's one that should be fixed right away due to its impact on a high number of people. So with this, you can choose to just send something like a numeric ID. We have ways of tracking these different people or users without storing any personal information about them. And then telemetry, this is something that you enable in the code, and it's going to automatically capture the events that are reported through that. So here, this one I just used a screenshot, couldn't think of anything better to do for graphics here. But you can see a good view of what's going on here captured by the telemetry. We have page load events, even the user click, you can see where I'm clicking on the page. Errors will be bundled together here into this single session, so we can see the different occurrences. This is a very rudimentary workflow that I do. I have 2 broken buttons, and I'll click them both so we can see each one. Missing method 1, missing method 2. But it does keep this in chronological order as well. So we have a very detailed session story, and this can help understand what happened right before or after that event. You get a better understanding for those minute details that happen around a given item. All right, and for notifications, for this we'll look at Slack today. I don't think there's anything else. Slack and LaunchDarkly are the 2 that we'll review as part of the demo. We support a large number of other chat integration systems, a bunch of issue tracking tools, and PagerDuty, of course. And then also the generic webhook notifications. For services that we have not yet gotten around to building our native support for those, you may be able to take advantage of the webhook alerting and just send that to some sort of webhook listener. And once we get to the alerting part, we'll review the intelligent alerting concepts and how they play into the rules that I've built. It's not all that intelligent for what we've got for today's demo, but hopefully can help demonstrate some of those concepts, how these filters and the different conditional things inside of a notification rule can help you to send those to the right people and reduce noise. So just to quickly review some of the filters that we have and how these can help. The environment filter. So of course this one for production, we would probably want to ensure that all of our notifications have a prod filter and direct those, only those, to the high priority channels. Something like the framework filter, that can help you send those alerts to only the developers that are responsible for that code. There's no point in notifying everyone if it's just one group's responsibility. Reduction in the total number of alerts received, especially those noise alerts, that provides a better rollbar experience for everyone, and it improves the likelihood that people will respond to those alerts in a timely manner, that things will not be overlooked because of alert fatigue. And then the path filter, this is one that allows you to take any occurrence data, even the custom data that you choose to send from your SDK, you can filter on that as a part of the notification rules that you build. So if there's some sort of custom field that can help you identify which team or which user should take action on a rollbar item, then consider building notification rules that filter around that custom data. And maybe you direct those to different channels. I don't think we currently have the ability to send a Slack alert to a single person, but as a workaround, you could create a channel that only had one person in that. So if you wanted to get that granular, there are ways that we could support that without causing noise. All right, so that's a lot of talking, that's a lot of slides. Let's move over into the demo. So unfortunately, I don't actually have my own web application or anything like that, so all of my attempts to mimic a production environment are going to be just that. They're going to be rather flimsy attempts. So hopefully these concepts shine through. I don't think I'm authorized to show off the Rollbar production environment, unfortunately. So we'll just quickly start with some of my basic web apps here. These are just little forms that will generate some errors. And for each of these, I do have some concepts targeted here that should illuminate why these features are so important and what they do for us here. So I just clicked on each of the donation buttons here. Each of these are designed to throw an error. And I'm looking here, and the errors do look very similar. For each of them here, it says toast is not defined. Don't really know what that's doing at the present. I'm not seeing anything right here that really helps me understand the problem. Looking back at Rollbar, these items did come in real time, so we see I didn't even have to refresh the page. These are both on the top of my list. And you're looking at these and probably wondering, why are these two separate errors? And this is actually demonstrating one of the features of the grouping engine here. So these code context things are pointing to old versions. I'll have to update those later. But here, if we look at these, there is a difference in line number for the top of the stack. We have line 40, column 5, and line 50, column 5. And since each of those corresponds to a different code problem, they are grouped separately. If I go back over to my code here, just looking at this, we can see on line 40 here, toast is a method. And I guess I forgot to define it or something, because it's certainly not working, and it says toast is not defined. So my code fix in this case would probably be to add a function for toast and make that send back the correct message. Now I'm not actually going to do that here, but hopefully that helps to demonstrate how this grouping engine is doing more than just reading the text. It is also going to look at those different frames in the stack. It's going to evaluate those. And we can see here that it is capturing some of that telemetry data. This is the second event, and it includes the story of what happened for the first here. So oldest event first, we can reverse that around. So with those, it would be a single fix to resolve both of them. So if you wanted to, you could apply your own grouping rules here. You could merge those, and then that would collapse them into a single item. Since both of those would be fixed by the same code change, that's up to you as a user if that's the way you would like to handle it. But for here, we have those as separate items. And this is another grouping example. This comes from a Django demo application that will run a script, and it's doing a date validation, but unfortunately, they're not using the right format here. It should be year, month, day. Here we see month, day, year. But this is a case where grouping is not going to apply a separate item for each of these. The only thing that changes in each of these occurrences here, if we look at them, these are different date strings. So it just randomizes that, and we can see that all of these are grouped together because that is the same problem. It's just a format issue. And it's not like these are occurring from different lines of code. So in that case, we have 32 occurrences, but just one entry. And of course, if I fire off more of those donation ones here, we'll see those come through. I needed to make sure to send at least 5 of each to trigger an alert. So here we see those collapsed as well. So grouping is preventing us from being overwhelmed by new messages about this, while also ensuring that we see the distinct problems that are both being returned here. So same thing with another demo I did a few days ago, return message in a couple different places being shown there. So that's grouping at work. That's the automation grade grouping engine helping you out. And if we go within these items, there is going to be this affected people column. So the item detail menu, this is where you do a lot of your investigating and triaging and root cause analysis. And so one of those tabs is the people tab. And here I can see this person configured for a while for my demo data. And we can see a user story here. You can see every one of the occurrences they've experienced in reverse chronological order. So this is another great tool for support folks that may be helping with this item workflow. You can see specifically what errors they experienced in order. And grouping's not applied here because we want to see every occurrence of an error. That helps to see if they maybe were switching between menus and hitting problems back and forth, or if they just continually faced the same problem and then gave up. So people tracking, that in the case of this demo, I have it hard-coded here in my Rollbar config, but if you noticed, this also has the 3 forms for ID information. So in this demo, I could also set that, I believe, and then I think it will override. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to override or not. Looks like it did. So I think that rollbar.configure call would be done after the initial configuration. So there we can see person 123 is now showing up there. So people tracking also has its own menu if you would rather investigate from the entity, look at the person and how they were affected. That also opens up some RQL analytics options where you can see the different items. You can then open up some queries and maybe take a look at those. All right, so while I was spamming all these alerts by clicking those buttons, I do have a demo channel open in Slack, and this one has hammered me with the number of Slack messages about my demo environment. So in this case, it's pretty noisy. I do have some set up to report every occurrence to me. So that's where you're seeing all these donation faileds. In my mind, if I was monitoring a donation platform, then every time someone failed to make a donation because of an error, I mean, that's a direct loss of revenue. That's very important to me. So in this case, I configured it to link me back to that item, but then also tell me exactly how much money I just lost. Here we can see the new error notifications. So these are coming through because those are new items. They occurred for the first time. And then I also had some high occurrence rate notifications set up here, 5 occurrences in 1 minute. So definitely did that with all my button mashing. And so unfortunately, I think in this view it does look a little bit like noise. I probably should have put some thought into that. So minus all these occurrence ones, I think it's a pretty good set. We have 2 new error notifications and 2 about a high occurrence rate. So I would know there is a new problem, and it is pretty active. And if I wanted, I could sum up all this lost money. It's probably something like $800. So all of that helping me to understand the urgency of the problem, where the problem occurred, who's experiencing it, and if I look at that item and its details, I can hopefully understand what I need to do to fix that. So all of this very helpful to the folks that are trying to rapidly address that problem, either roll back something or hopefully make a fix so that it doesn't persist. All right, so now let's briefly look at this LaunchDarkly demo. I think to me it makes sense for this to be a part of this video because LaunchDarkly and the feature flagging process does allow you to test in production. No testing resource is as effective as all of your users combined. So allowing them to run a sort of pseudo test on your code and then having the appropriate rollbacks to take that out of commission when it's causing problems. So just a little bit of background into this before I go click the magic button. I probably should have shown you this about Slack as well on the other project. We'll do that as a follow-up. So here for my LD demo project, my LaunchDarkly demo, I do have a specific notification channel set up with LaunchDarkly. So I provided my token and all that good stuff. And then I have a rule here that says if there is a new or a reactivated item in this project, then I need to make sure that it toggles off this say hello button feature flag. And the condition here, in order to make sure it's not just toggling that flag because of any error, I wanted to make sure that the say hello substring was present in the method of one of those trace stacks. So hopefully if say hello is present when I toggle my button, we should see some changes in the overall functionality here. So again, it's pretty bleak, but hopefully this works as a mechanical example. So I clicked the button, I waited a couple of seconds for LaunchDarkly to respond, I refreshed, the button is gone. If I look at LaunchDarkly, it says targeting is on. As I refresh, it will change to the off state. And I can prove that it was a rollbar occurrence that made that change by looking at the history of this flag. So here I turned it on a few hours ago, and then as that occurrence triggered that notification rule, the feature flag had its state toggled back to off, which meant that the button is no longer being displayed. So the logic here is that if this button causes errors for my users, which it did cause an error, we can prove that by looking at the rollbar items list. So if that error did occur, then toggle off the button because the button is not working safely. It's not doing what we expected it to, or it's doing something else. So here, LaunchDarkly demo, item number 2, can't find variable, get message. It occurred 1 minute ago. If we look in here, we'll see it is the say hello method that caused that. So that is how the integration works. You can take advantage of Rollbar's intelligence and LaunchDarkly's rapid feature flag toggling to help quickly move users away from problematic code. And so let's look at the JS demo notification rules. We'll sort of close out with this here. So the Slack notifications that we have. This is the every occurrence rule that was a bit noisy there. It does have a special format there. And most of these are going to have environment production. We do have that here, at least for the deploy. And then for the high occurrence rate, this is another one. I can change that occurrence rate. 5 in a minute is not a lot for a true production app used by a lot of people. So 100 in a minute, 1,000 in a minute, maybe change your time range. Maybe there's a certain number in a day that is considered too many. So all of that available to you here, allowing you to customize these messages and redirect those to different teams as well. I think there may be some examples here in my JavaScript Slack project. I can't remember if we had some formatting there, so nope, nothing there. All right, so I hope this helped illuminate the production code quality use case. We do have a number of resources available to help. There's a lot of self-starting educational resources and other guides that we have available. So the Rollbar Academy, this video, a part of that series. Our support team is always ready and willing to help. Our documentation has a lot of this in writing, maybe without as much best practices. And then we also have the Rollbar YouTube channel and the knowledge base. So we're trying to make sure that we have educational content available in all of its different forms. All right, so that concludes the video. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day.